Previously, after knowing that Minato had died, the group became sad and frustrated. They just lost their leader and also their family. Because of this, the group needs a new leader and Mary comes to replace him. Unfortunately, her attitude is very annoying and very different from Minato's, which makes everyone annoyed at her. Now, they were still trying to get close to her even when she was always so cold to them. The last part of the anime begins by showing Haruhiro and the others going to eat together at a tavern. However, they accidentally saw Mary, who was eating there. They saw her chatting with a man named Shinohara from an Orient clan. Seeing this, they became very confused. How could Mary know Shinohara, the leader of Orient, a very famous clan? The next day, Haruhiro and the others went back to goblin hunting as usual. This time their cooperation looks a little better. Haruhiro began to realize that Mary didn't want to fight on the front lines because she wanted to protect Chihiro, who was on the back line. He noticed that Moguzo seemed more alert and didn't have much room to move since he didn't have any headgear. Seeing this, Haruhiro told Moguzo to buy headgear, because if he uses full equipment, then he can automatically fight better. This will certainly have a major impact on the entire group. They are willing to save and jointly buy headgear for Moguzo. In the evening, they went together for dinner at a tavern that was popular with the volunteer army. When they saw Shinohara, they immediately approached him and asked about Mary because they had seen her chatting with him. Shinohara should have known something about Mary, which they didn't. After that, Shinohara introduced them to a man named Hayashi, who was in the same group as Mary. He told them several things about Mary, including why she is so cold now. Whereas in the past, Mary was a very cheerful and enthusiastic person. She always heals the members of their group, even if they are only scratched. When their group is cornered, sometimes she plays the role of a tanker, and you could say she looks like Minato. Until one day, Mary and the others hunt in the Siren Mines. When they arrived at the 5th layer of the mine, they met a powerful giant monster called Death Spots. Unfortunately, they were unable to fight the monster. Even 2 male members of her group, Ogu and Mutsumi, died. Their group leader, Michiki, had been seriously injured. Seeing this, Hayashi asked Mary to heal Michiki, but unfortunately, her magic energy had run out. This happened because she always healed her friends even though they were only injured. As a result of an emergency, she had run out of her magic energy. At that time, Mary was no longer able to heal her friends. Michiki decides to hold the death spot so Hayashi and Mary can escape to a safer place. They both managed to escape safely but lost 3 valuable friends. Since then, Mary's character has become gloomy and cold-like now because she always blames herself for the death of her friends. That's why she didn't want to heal Ranta because she only got a scratch to save her magical energy in case of an emergency. After hearing Hayashi's story, certainly made them very surprised because they never knew that Mary had a very sad past. The next day, Haruhiro and the others hunted to Demuro City as usual, but at that time, the weather was raining heavily, making it difficult for them to find goblins to hunt. Accidentally, they saw a goblin carrying Haruhiro's dagger. So previously, before Haruhiro and Minato were shot by the goblins, Haruhiro's dagger accidentally fell. It seems that the dagger was taken by one of the goblins that ambushed them that time. They lurk when the goblin heads to his hideout to avenge Minato's death, so Haruhiro intended to kill all the goblins that had ambushed him. But their abilities were still insufficient to storm the goblins' headquarters. For now, they could only snoop around while gathering information. While taking a break, Haruhiro invited Mary to talk. He told her everything about Minato. When fighting, Minato can play 3 roles at once, namely as healer, tanker, and their leader. But unfortunately, now Minato is dead. Even Haruhiro thought they were the cause of Minato's death because they had always depended on him. Unknowingly, they made Minato's burden even heavier. As a result, when Minato was seriously injured, they immediately lost their way and didn't know what to do. In the end, Minato could not survive and died. Haruhiro's goal was to tell about Minato so that Mary could get to know them better. He hoped that they could make friends with her. Likewise, the other group members wanted to get to know her. Since then, Mary finally wants to open up to all of them. Gradually, their relationship gets closer. In the afternoon, Haruhiro and his friends went to buy headgear for Moguzo. Because finally, the money they had collected was enough to buy headgear. It was known that Ranta was great at bargaining with prices, so the headgear that originally sold for 42 silver coins was bargained for him for 18 silver coins. After Moguzo has a headgear, he can fight even better, and it affected the entire group. Now they could face a larger group of goblins. From there, they started hunting down the goblins in Demuro City daily. Even their group earned the nickname Goblin Slayer from the other volunteer troops. So, Haruhiro's group was strong enough to hunt down another monster. However, they all still didn't want to move hunting locations before they could avenge Minato and finish off the previous goblin base. That's why, whenever they earn money from hunting, they always spend the money to strengthen themselves, starting from buying war equipment to learning some new skills. Like Haruhiro, who has learned 2 new skills, sneaking and SWAT, make his steps inaudible to the enemy. The rest of the group learned new skills, which strengthened their group. And now they were ready to avenge Minato. The next day, Haruhiro's group set out for the goblins' headquarters. Once there, they managed to kill the goblins who were on guard. After that, they barged in to face several other goblins. But unfortunately, they had a hard time dealing with the goblins because it turns out that the goblins can read human movements. It seemed that the goblins had fought humans many times, so they were used to the fighting style of humans. They were overwhelmed by the goblins, and even one of the goblins managed to seriously injure Yume. But thanks to their cooperation, the goblins were defeated one by one. Soon afterward, they managed to capture the goblins' leader, but one of the goblins managed to shoot Mary from behind. It reminded them of the moment of Monato's death, but the difference is that Mary can still survive and use her magic to heal her wounds. After that, Haruhiro immediately chased after the archer goblin for a one-on-one duel. After a fairly fierce battle, he managed to defeat the archer goblin. As a result, they won the battle against the goblins and avenged Monato's death. After everything was done, they went straight to Monato's funeral. Haruhiro said that now they had all managed to buy official badges for his volunteer army. So all this time, Haruhiro and his friends were volunteer troops still in training, and the condition for them to become official volunteer troops is to buy the badge. However, the badge was quite expensive at 20 silver coins, but now they had managed to buy their own badge, and they even bought a plan for Minato. Even though it was useless because Minato had died, they still wanted to buy an official badge for him. Haruhiro said that they had become a great group by now, so Minato doesn't have to worry about them and can rest in peace there. The next day, Haruto and the others decided to rest for a day. Because yesterday they had gone through a tough battle, they had to rest to recover their strength. They spend vacation time doing things they like. Shiro feeds the birds while looking at the scenery, and Mary spends time drinking coffee while reading a book. Ranta decides to fish in a lake by boat, Yume spends her time climbing a cliff, Moguzo takes care of his armor and makes some sculptures of a wooden statue, and Haruhiro decides to wander around the city. That day they spent leisurely, without adventures or battles between life and death. In the evening, Haruhiro and the others eat together at a tavern. They heard the news that the goblins in Demuro City had become more violent. Even before that, several groups were massacred completely. Hearing that, they became confused because they had always been hunting in Demuro City, but now the condition there has become very dangerous. Moguzo suggested that they should move hunting locations for a while. Haruhiro suggested that they could hunt in the Siren Mines. But the problem is there is a very dangerous Death Spots monster. Even if someone manages to kill Death Spots, the volunteer troops will be willing to reward 30 gold coins. The Death Spots are monsters that have killed Mary's 3 friends. Hearing this, Mary was still traumatized when they discussed the Siren mining and left them. Mary wanted her to overcome her trauma so that she could move forward without fear. That's why she needed the help of all of them. It was decided that they would go hunting in the Siren Mines. But beforehand, they had to prepare everything very carefully, from buying better equipment to learning new skills. Even Haruhiro spent 40 silver coins just to learn a surprise attack skill called Spider, which was trained by Barbara. During a break, Haruhiro asked Barbara a few questions. So lately, he had often seen a streak of light when he was fighting, where the line leads him to attack the weak point of his enemy. Out of curiosity, he asked him about it. Barbara explained that his experience was normal, especially for experienced thieves. When hunting day arrives, Haruhiro and the others head to the Siren Mines fully prepared. The monsters that inhabit the Siren Mines are a type of kobold. Luckily, they could finish off the kobolds easily, thanks to their new equipment and skills. The Siren Mines were divided into layers, and in the first layer, they would encounter low-tier kobolds. Volunteers can ascend or descend the strata using a well that has a rope to go up or down. Each layer has wells that can be used, separating the wells in several different places. After that, Haruhiro and the others chose to go down to the second layer. At that place, they had to face mid-level kobolds who were much stronger than the previous kobolds. Although the actual difference in strength between them is not that much, they could still defeat the kobold easily. But the most serious problems they will find in the third layer and so on, where elder kobolds have started to appear in the layer. That's why Haruhiro decided to end the hunt for the day. That evening, Haruhiro asked Ranta for a chat. He asked Ranta to work with the rest of the group because Ranta fought alone most of the time. Hearing this, Ranta said the most important thing was that he could complete his tasks while fighting, so that was enough. Even with Ranta, they could expand the variety of tactics that could be used, and it must be admitted that this is true. There is no guarantee that the tactics they usually use will always work. There are times when they have to change tactics to win against the enemy. The next day, Haruhiro and the others returned to hunting in the Siren Mines. But as before, Ranta was still fighting in his own way. While sometimes he can endanger friends who are close to him, Ranta can still carry out his role in the group quite well. With that too, they could face the kobolds in the 3rd layer. After that, they decided to continue the hunt for the 4th layer, where the 4th layer is much different from the previous 3 layers. The 4th layer was a very large agricultural field, and the owners of this field were the kobolds. The fight in the 4th layer will be very dangerous because if they are not alert, they will be surrounded by kobolds from all directions. At that place, Ranta accidentally touched a trap set by the kobolds. As a result, their location was discovered by the kobolds. Worse yet, the death spots were there. They chose to flee to the 5th layer, where a 5th layer is a place for metal smelting. This makes the air temperature in the 5th layer very hot. In addition, the 5th layer is where Mary lost her 3 friends. The purpose of them being there was to go to a safe place, so they had to sneak around so they wouldn't be noticed. Arriving at a place called Lumiaris Temple, they rested while recharging. While resting, you may suddenly heard a strange sound. The sound source came from 3 men in robes who turned out to be Andits, and they were Mary's friends. It happened because, when they died, the 3 of them were not cremated when they got a curse from the King of Death that made them turn into Andits. In the form of Andit, they certainly don't remember anything in their past. As a result, Haruhiro's group was forced to fight against the 3 of them. They were quite difficult when fighting the Andits. But thanks to their cooperation, Mary finally managed to use Dispel Magic to attack the 3 Andits. Dispel Magic works to release the curse of the undead so that now 3 friends of Mary can rest in peace. After everything was done, suddenly, death spots appeared and attacked them. Haruhiro and the others fought desperately to escape the pursuit of the death spots. While running, Ranta unfortunately fell and separated from his friends. At that time, he said that they could go first while he would find another well to go up to the 4th layer. Ranta was desperately trying to escape the kobolds. After a long battle, Ranta had finally made his way up to the 4th layer. Unfortunately, his current condition was already seriously injured. That's why he could only hide from the pursuit of the kobolds. After that, he used his demon skill to summon a creature that could detect the enemy's presence. Unfortunately, Ranta's hiding location was known to the kobolds. That's why he had to run away again as much as possible and find a safe place. Actually, he had given up on having to die in that place. Moreover, the death spots found his hiding place. Luckily, Haruhiro and the others came to his aid. They managed to save him from death. Seeing his friends coming made Ranta feel so happy. He even cried. Thanks to the help of his friends, he finally managed to escape to the 3rd layer. At that place, Mary heals Ranta's wounds by using her magic. After finishing, they continued to the 2nd layer, but their current condition was already very exhausted. They had all run out of energy. Even Mary could only use 1 magic. Unfortunately, death spots were still chasing them to the 2nd layer. Seeing this, they tried their best to fight the death spots. But unfortunately, their current condition was impossible to fight. That's why Haruhiro sacrificed himself to hold the death spot so that his friends could escape from there safely. After that, Haruhiro's condition seemed to have been badly injured. He had resigned himself to his own death, but he suddenly saw a line of light leading him to attack the weak point of his enemy. Even under such conditions, he felt that his enemy was moving very slowly. Haruhiro continued to follow the directions of the line. In the end, he managed to win against death spots. Haruhiro, who was already exhausted, fell unconscious. The next day, Haruhiro regained his senses. When he woke up, he became very confused because he was already at the inn where he was staying. When he fainted, it turned out that his friends came back down to pick him up. That was why Haruhiro was able to wake up and be at the inn again. After defeating death spots, they were rewarded with 30 gold coins. After that incident, the volunteer troops began to acknowledge the abilities of Haruhiro's group. This is the end of the anime. The moral that can be learned from this anime is not to be discouraged when fighting at the last second, because maybe you can get a victory with 1 more attack at the last second.